That's how I came across you. This crazy video and you're like, I quit a full-time salary job, moved to Bali, worked 20 hours a week and made 300K a year. And I was like, I need a fucking tour to this guy.
We've got two separate parts to our business, the recruitment business. So we work with a lot of coaches and consultants who are selling a high-ticket service. We help candidates get the nuanced skills that are required in a remote high-ticket setting.
How I show up as Kris's partner is very different to how I show up in the business. The biggest challenge for me personally is not being as emotional and vulnerable with Kris as my CEO as I would be with Kris as my partner.
You can get paid more than a doctor, a lawyer. Sometimes you get paid more than the business owner. He helped them build the team. He was selling at the start. He kind of helped them grow it. And it is now 1.3 million USD a month. He makes a percentage of that. Some months, 75K US. That's an example of what's possible.
Looking at the top performers that you've worked with, what are some key traits which allows them to be in the top 1%?
So we're back. Another episode, Two Blokes, One Business. Today we're on the sofa with Kris Cochrane and Sharni Campbell. Super excited to dive into this one.
Now, there's so much value you're going to get out of this, but one of the burning questions I've got is how the hell do you guys manage to cope being business partners, parents, and partners all in one?
So great therapy is number one.
We don't do anything. We probably should.
We have a goal to do therapy, which is going to help.
Time.
And the hardest part about for me is just the switch between contexts.
Yeah.
It's wearing the hat of a business owner and CEO and all the little hats you wear in a business, to then switching to relationship, to then being a father, and so just switching between contexts. And because we work from home as well, it's not like you get to leave the office and you can become a different person. So you're changing a location. So the anchor of that location change, we don't have that. So we're always at home, but which is also our office. But what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, that's definitely. It's funny we didn't actually discuss this before we got here, but that's definitely it for me. We made a really conscious decision about 4 months ago that Kris would be CEO of the company. I actually don't have a position on the org chart. I'm this like floater off in the corner with no direct reports, and I just do weird shit and money happens. But so Kris is the CEO. So that dynamic's really interesting in business between, like, we're both co-founders, co-directors, but ultimately Kris kind of runs the show. So that dynamic's interesting. But I think for me, it's really, shifting context and kind of putting how I show up as Kris's partner is very different to how I show up in the business and how I have to show up in the business. As Kris's partner, I'm a lot more feminine. I'm a lot more emotional, gentle. Don't laugh.
Tells me what to do all the time. 100%.
But in the business, I've got to be a lot more masculine. I have to be really conscious of how we interact in front of our team as well, because that can be a really interesting dynamic. And it's something that we're really upfront about when people come into our business, that, we are life partners and business partners. So some of our meetings are probably a little bit more direct with each other than business partners might be traditionally. So I think the biggest challenge for me personally is not being as emotional and vulnerable with Kris as my CEO as I would be with Kris as my partner.
Yes.
It's an interesting dynamic as well. If we have like an all-team meeting, we've done all of our team or a leadership meeting, and to go into business mode and, calling each other, calling, hey babe, on a team meeting with the crew, or is it Sharni? And there are little things where, little frustration points or little patterns that you have in your relationship where maybe, we might not speak to each other in such a professional way, but you're on a team meeting and, sort of switching that front. So, and that's something that we hired an ops manager, and we were going through the interview process. One of the last final candidates, she said, hey, can I ask you a question? And I was like, sure. She goes, well, just what kind of happens if you guys break up? What happens with this?
Sorry, good question.
And I had no answers. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I can assure you I don't think it will, but so I thought it was an interesting chat. And I think her husband had actually asked her that because she was right down to the wire. And so I was getting serious, and she was, that was what her husband was a bit fearful that, okay, that it's a bit, is there stability there if the relationship falters?
Which is a valid question.
It's a great
because
question.
I think if you were not solid, Kris and I had also worked together before we were in business together.
Right.
So I think that we had a foundation of a professional relationship, and then we had a personal relationship, not the other way around. I think it would be a lot harder if you had never worked together, you didn't come from similar industries. Like, we are a dynamic duo. Like, we work really, really well together. But if you didn't have a solid foundation and you just decided to go into business with your partner, the cracks would become canyons pretty quickly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, saying that, we're still pretty early. I mean, by most relationships, we're still like, what are we, 3 years in?
No, not even. Not even. I think we're like,
it was 2022, wasn't it? Yeah. So. I'm pretty sure.
It must have been 2022. Yeah, we've got babies. So it must be, sorry.
Yeah. So lots happened in a short period of time. It's very condensed. But that's the long-winded answer to
it. Would you say it's a superpower of yours? I know with Harvey and I, we've known each other since we were 14. We've got a bit of a cute love story. So there's no bullshit, right? We can call each other out and we know it's from the right intention.
Yeah.
Like, everything we do is 50-50. And there's just never that niggling doubt that you might have with someone who you've just met, decided to go into business with, you've just got into a relationship with. Are they in it for themselves? Have they got the same intent as I've got? I know for us, it's a massive superpower because it's essentially 2 brains instead of 1. Well, probably 1.5 brains between the 2 of us.
Well, why did everyone look at me then?
It's
Definitely.
The synergy, the sum of us together and is much greater than individually. Like, before we met, I went through I was building a business, a similar business to what we have now, which is a sales training business, and kind of went into recruitment. And that's how we got together, is because I was starting to train lots of salespeople and helping them transition into sales, giving them the skills, but the people don't really want the sales training. They want the outcome. They want the money. They want the freedom. They want the lifestyle. And so then placing salespeople was the next step and helping them get placed. And I thought, man, I need to probably build a recruiting business. So that's how I called her. She was the only recruiter I knew. And that's how we got chatting. We'd worked together a year prior to that. And it was a great working relationship. It was through a client. We had a mutual client. The rest sort of was history. But now I wasn't able to get that business off the ground. It was the way I operate. I think I go quite deep on things, and I just felt like I was really just stuck on really getting it big and getting out of my own way. And so that's what Sharni brings now is just helping me get out of my own way, getting shit done. Like, she's the more ready, fire, aim, and I'm a little bit more the other way inclined. And so that we definitely complement each other.
I'm really keen to dig into the businesses and the lessons you've learned along the way. But a selfish question, something you said very early about in the businesses, Kris wears the hat of a CEO, and you said you float around. I'm sure you do a lot more than that. But we've probably hit a stage in our business where we've got a strategy session on Friday to sit down and go, right, what is the long-term plan and how do we structure both of our roles around that? Because so far we've had some really quick and aggressive growth. But as I'd said, we've just done everything 50-50. We just muck in together and it's been incredible. But now we're at a stage where our roles probably do need to change a bit, and we probably need to play to our own strengths a little bit more and do things alone, although I know he'll miss me, just to kind of be a bit more creative and effective with our own time. What was the process and how did you come to that decision of the split?
Yeah, I think my brain is always thinking like strategically, where are we going? What's happening? Like, what's the long-term kind of vision? We work with a really great coach as well called Jeff Jowett, who we had actually worked with individually before getting together. So he was stoked when he heard that we were together as a couple. But we work with him together. So we go to coaching calls together. We talk about the business. And I think it was me that kind of said, we need to figure out what we're doing. There was a few considerations that we went through, but the main one was really, our strengths and where we naturally fit was a big thing. A huge one was that I'm a mum. And I'm mum first.
Yeah.
And so, you know,
I think for me as well, it was like, what am I not? Because that's probably
Yes,
something as a
yeah.
small business owner, we had pretty quick growth, and all of a sudden it's us two, we're doing our thing, and then all of a sudden we've got a team, and the team's growing, and then we've got an ops manager and a sales manager and sales people, and we've got a whole crew, and we're like, man, we need to work out exactly what our roles are because we hadn't defined them. It was just we get in and we do whatever we need to do. And it was coming up to a strategy day with our team. So we have Matt, who's our sales lead, and he's sort of a player coach at the moment, but he's moving more into sales manager, and Joel, who is the new ops manager. And so we had a strategy day planned, and we decided we need to get the org chart sorted. And so we thought, well, we got to present these guys an org chart. Where are we at now? Where do we plan to be in 12 months as well? What's our goal org chart? Where's it going to be? So that whole process, and then working with Jeff, was helpful just to have the date of this upcoming meeting and knowing that we wanted to present an org chart. And so, we went to Jeff, who's super wise. Like he's built multiple businesses that, 8-9 figures, and also had a lot of stumbles in life. So he's got
the wisdom.
so much wisdom. And it was, a lot of it was really like, what are you not? What are you not? And so for Sharni, it's like, she's not a recruiter. She's not a resourcer. She's not a lot of the things that she was doing. And for me, it was, I'm not a coach because I'm doing a lot of coaching. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not, because I was doing some sales at the time. I'm not. And it led me, and it sort of led us to, we just had, for both of us, we had, what are we and what are we not?
Love that.
And then for everyone else in the leadership team as well, we started to build out what are they not. And there were things in some of their roles that they're not, but they have to do right now. And so we're able to say like, hey, this is kind of outside of where we see you, but right now with where the business is at, you've got to do a couple of these things. And it also gave us an opportunity to build that 12-month time org chart.
Yeah.
Like what are the not things that people are currently doing, and what does that look like as a role to actually get us to the next stage?
Yeah. And with the ops versus CEO as well, the ops was helpful. He was like, operations looks inward and then the CEO looks outward. And for me, because I was so stuck in operations, so stuck in systems and creation and we've got the inflow acquisition coming through, but then we're trying to deliver and we're trying to systemize. I was spending so much time in there, and I hadn't really turned around to look at the vision at all. And that was a bit of a shift for me, like thinking, wow, I've got to look ahead, I've got to provide that clear pathway. And so, we just kind of naturally came to me being a CEO. At the moment, Sharni is a recruiter. She's doing most of the recruitment, and she's just magical at what she does. And it's really hard. It'll be hard to kind of replace her, but we know that that's not where she can't be a recruiter. She can't be sort of on the tools. She has to be, and she brings some sort of, it was a hard one. It was this floating role that's not really fitting into an org chart position like a CMO or,
Head of people.
head of anyone. Yeah, really. It's like, hey, so Sharni goes to events, she networks, she joins masterminds, she has ideas. So her idea was the podcast. We launched the podcast before we launched the business, and it was caused us to have a lot of success because of that, which if it were left to me,
had to drag
I would have
every
said,
week
no way.
to record the podcast.
I'm just like,
Just trust me.
I've been
It's going to be worth
I've been
it.
doing a podcast, but it was her. It was her idea and her strategy, and she started it. She had the idea. She got the agency on board, whereas I would never have thought to do that. But it's caused us to have heaps of success, and huge part of our business at the moment. So little things like that. It's just very hard to quantify for us. So that's a bit of the process that we went through.
I'm keen to dive super deep, but for context for the listeners who may be hearing from you for the first time, who do you help and how you do it with the business?
All right, so we've got two separate parts to our business. So one of our initial business is the recruitment business, which we work with agencies and any business who's selling remotely, who sells a agency product, a coaching product. So we work with a lot of coaches and consultants who are selling a high ticket service, and they have a sales process that's remote because we hire remote sales reps, and we specialize in remote appointment setters and high ticket closers. That's our bread and butter. And that was our kind of the first part to the business was doing that. I've been working in that space now for many years as a closer, building sales teams, and have naturally built out a bit of a network, and was getting approached for someone who needs a setter or someone who needs a closer. And we've got Sharni, who's a recruiter, so let's sort of start filling those roles. And then naturally it progressed to a lot of our talent pool were not good enough to get a remote role. They had sales experience and they were kind of there, but they just weren't there enough. And being a natural sales trainer myself, having sales trained for many years, that was the direction. It was like, all right, well, let's find a way that we can help candidates get the skills, get the nuanced skills that are required in a remote high ticket setting to help them bridge the gap from whatever they've been selling to this remote high ticket space, which is a really niched type of selling.
Yeah, for someone who doesn't have a clue what that is, I probably should. Can you dumb it down for me?
So Tony Robbins is a coach, right? And so he sells a coaching program with an intangible result. Hey, come and change your life.
Yeah.
And the products will range from $2,000 up to $100K for his highest end product, and potentially more. I'd say he probably has $1 million products for the big dogs. So he's a coach. He has a high ticket product. A high ticket product is, or a service or a program is anything above 2,000 or 2 to 3K that can't be that is sold through online marketing, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. You see the coaches, you see the agency services pop up when you're scrolling through Facebook. You click on the ad, it takes you to a video, you book a call. There's some sort of an outcome that you're looking for, whether it's grow your business, change your life. And to get there, there's a coaching program. And usually the coaching program is 3K, 5K. So we work with fitness coaches, business owners who, have fitness programs for their clients. We've got a lot of business coaches who, coach businesses. Some of our clients help help businesses exit. So they get ready for exit. Some of them are fitness niched businesses. They help fitness businesses. We've got they help female founders. And then we work with a lot of property agencies.
So a lot of buyer's agents and investment services where they're charging a 15 to 25K
or up to
fee
60K,
more.
depending on the service.
Yeah. But I guess the commonality is that the leads are inbound. So a lot of prospects come to us and say, I need a high ticket salesperson. And they're expecting that salesperson to do like BDM work and going outbound, finding the leads. That's not what we do. Like we are, an appointment setter or a closer works on inbound leads. They may do a little bit of like DM setting and things like that to prospect, but I think that's the big disconnect that a lot of people have in this space is that, marketing sorted, the appointment setters and closers are really qualified to deal with inbound leads. And it's a really specific skill set that they use on those calls.
Yeah, from like your Instagram ads. And
exactly.
I think that's how I came across you. And I think that's why I reached out, because there's this crazy video and you're like, I quit a full-time salary job, moved to Bali, worked 20 hours a week and made $300K a year. And I was like, I need to fucking talk to this guy. I was like, this is class. So you got me.
Well, mate, you're onto a winner here. So sounds like you've you made that right call. But high ticket is a pretty damn good lifestyle. And to be honest, it was just sales for me when I got into high ticket. It was my mate Ben Handler, who's runs a company called the Buyers Agent Institute. We were good mates before he started that business. I lived across the road from his old office. He ran one of probably Australia's largest buyers agency that was in Potts Point when I was in Sydney. We met each other at coffee. I was going through a bit of a tough time with my business at the time, which was fitness. And he started this sort of side hustle, which was a coaching thing. And it was like, yeah, dude, I've just built a course. I've put some ads to it. Got leads in my calendar, sales calls coming in. And dude, I did 70 grand this month. And at the time for me, I was like 70 grand? I was like, what? Are you kidding? And it was just this, and he was always on the phone. We'd go for brekkie or coffee or whatever. And he'd be always on the phone. He'd be going out to take a call because he's closing a deal. And I was going through a bit of a time where my business, I had a fitness company, which was it was an outsourced personal training services for Anytime Fitness gyms that went under, and I was sort of left looking at what am I doing next. I was doing some sales consulting, some sales coaching, and Benny is just hustling on the phones. You could tell he was just busier than he'd ever been. And I said one day, I said, man, like, let me take some calls. Let me close some of these deals for you. And so that led me to this thing, which we now know as high ticket sales. At the time, was just get on the phone and close a few of these deals. The first couple of months were difficult. I'd been through I was a coach, a sales coach, a certified, so I thought a sales expert. But getting on a phone call and talking to a lead who just clicked on a Facebook ad, who'd seen a short video, who knew nothing about me, nothing about really the product or the industry, and then trying to close them into a 6-7K product on one call was bloody hard. And I was getting my ass kicked. And so I realized it was sales, but it was a very different type of sales, a sale that I was not used to, because I was used to fitness sales or in-person sales. We just get the benefit of having that in-person rapport and just leveraging your charisma or being the business owner and just selling that way. So it was very different, I found.
I don't know if this is an industry secret, but say you're selling a 5K course. As the closer, you're only there to sell to the lead. What do you make? What's the commissions on that?
It depends, but it's generally 10% is the commission. So if you're a commission-only closer, you're selling product, it's usually 10%, and then some will offer a paid in full commission. So my guys at the moment are making 10%, and they get a certain percentage for a paid in full. So it could be up to 12%. Total for a paid in full if you're getting it up front. Yeah. Which is good money.
Yeah, big time.
Which is bloody good money. Yeah. If you don't have to, for me at that time where I didn't do any setting, didn't do any prospecting, it was literally, okay, I opened my calendar, the leads were booked into my calendar by marketing, I showed up to a call, took the call. The first month or so I was not closing because everyone wanted to think about it. So, but once I worked it out, was closing deals. I was making up to sort of $800, $850. It was $850 a paid in full. So for me at that time where I was broke, I was absolutely broken. Again, I nearly went bankrupt after the business went under. So I was dead ass broke. I was back on the gym floor doing PT, which was just doing my head in. Gone from like the king of PT to then back doing gym floor sessions. And I'd sell PT 10 sessions for $1,500, and then I had to give 10 hours of work. Yeah. And then here I was making one phone call and I'd be getting that I didn't have to prospect. I didn't have to pay for the lead. Didn't have to do anything.
Didn't have to
deliver the service. So I'd make the sale and I'd punt it to delivery and I'd be on to the next.
A common theme that we've a common theme we've found being in business and doing podcasts and speaking to people like yourself is it's always after that shit bit.
Yes.
Isn't it? It's never someone who's just been on that straight trajectory where life just gets easier and easier. It's always when someone's hit rock bottom or whatever that is for them, bang. They've obviously spoke to the right people. They've put themselves in the room. They've taken a punt and then it's paid off. And it's so nice to see, isn't it? I get so happy with people like yourself who've been down the shit and then thought, I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to let that be the end of me. I'm going to flip it around. And now, look at you now.
Well, sometimes it's by force. You're just forced to, because when things are going okay, that's probably the problem. And my business at the time for a few years was going okay. It wasn't very profitable. I was driving a nice car. I had a decent lifestyle. I had my identity, but it wasn't great. It wasn't crushing it, but it was going okay. And I think when you just go okay, it prevents you from making a change. And so for me, I was just forced into this position where I had no other option. I was either going to go back into fitness and try to grow again, which I just didn't want to do, stay on the gym floor, keep being a PT or make a huge shift. And
what is it about people? Why do some people go one way and why do some go the other? It's a bit more psychology now, but what is it about that person that decides to go, nah, fuck yeah, I'm actually meant for more than this?
Well, it's a good question because you see it all the time on these sales calls because people are looking at investing in themselves and some people just don't have it in them. I think it's...
I think the sales, I think back to staff and salespeople, and I've I've had staff you guys would have as well. You've got some people who it's ingrained in their identity. Doesn't matter if they've got heaps of commission for the month. It's the last day of the month. They're still working their ringer off to squeeze out the best performance for the month. They've already made heaps of money, but it's just part of their identity. They're winners. And then other people, they need motivation. They need pain, I think. And when the pain of that situation is higher than the pain of the change, and the pain of the change is often the money invested or the time, whatever investment you got to make. When the pain of that situation is greater than the pain of the change, that's usually when a change can be made. In my experience,
it is ingrained into you. Like we've got Andy, he runs our labour hire division. Our background was pro football in the UK, and so was his. And he's like a different beast, isn't he? Like honestly, I've never seen this guy get so many doors shut in the face or fuck offs and just pick up the next phone call. Like honestly, like the last one just said, mate, you're the best recruiter I've ever spoken to. And he just keeps on doing it time after time after time. Like he's a freak.
They're built different, and you want to get as many of those people on
as many Andys as possible.
Well. Honestly, I think maybe 2 would be too much. The guy's doing like cartwheels and stuff around the office. But I can say just I've never met anyone like him, and he makes the power by what it is. Like having his energy around, like he is absolutely gold.
And do you think that's nature versus nurture? Do you think that's part of his how he's raised? Do you think that's just his personality type?
You know him longer than I do. Longer than I have.
I think it's a bit of both. Like he's probably quite similar to myself, where growing up, his family journey wasn't the traditional kind of happy story, and I think that does put a chip on your shoulder.
Yep.
And then getting into a pro football scene at such a young age, like in England, it is fucking brutal.
Must be
like
competitive.
There's 10,000 guys queuing up at the door, ready to take your spot the minute you drop below your performance level. So it's just it is ingrained in you from like 13, 14.
Yeah,
I guess moving
such an
over here,
impressionable age.
right? Like we've obviously all moved to Australia, where yes, we've got each other for sure, but there's no safety net.
Yeah,
There's no family here to pick you up off the floor and take you into bed at night. So I think that is another level of the desperation you might get to sometimes.
Immigrant mentality.
Yeah, and I love it.
Literally.
yeah.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It's a bit of burn the boats, really, isn't it?
Big time. And then I think the last one on top of that is the respect he's got for me and Harvey.
Yeah.
Obviously, we took a massive punt starting Harwell, and I think he understands what that risk was for us. And then we took over the visa for him, we sponsored him for sure. That's so good. But I think just because he's such a good bloke, he doesn't want to let us down.
Yeah.
So that's a big burner for him as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Sharni, I'm keen to hear about your transition into business ownership, because you were in recruitment the same as us. And I remember the penny drop that kind of pushed us to do it is we were looking at the figure we bought in for our old agency. We were looking at our pay slip at the end of the year, and we were going, okay, we've got to fill 25% of the jobs we're filling, and we're going to be making better money.
Yeah.
And even like before we started, we were like, if we can just do 300K between us in year one, that's enough to pay ourselves. And in month one, we did 125K, and we were like,
wow,
what the fuck?
Wow. That's wild.
That was our penny drop moment. Was your story similar?
It was the exact same. I feel like these big agencies need to start hiding the numbers.
time.
Literally.
It's like, it was a build up of things that got me to that point, though. I definitely didn't think when I started working, because I was working for a big agency, and the big agencies want you to believe that it's too hard to run an agency 100%. On your own, right? They want you to be like, well, I was thinking, I don't have a legal department. I don't have a head of people and culture. How am I going to put together my terms of business? What if someone tries to sue me? Like, I thought all of those things. And then I just had this like series of events where I'd kind of gotten very quickly, I progressed in that agency. And I went from like a blue collar resourcer in temp, which I think is a great place for everyone to start. And then account manager, moved into the specialist team, and then kind of ended up running that specialist team. I mean, it's a big agency. We were generalists, but that was kind of like the pinnacle. The next move for me would have been probably to become a team leader or a manager, but I looked at everyone above me and they were fucking miserable.
Yes.
Did you guys know? Have you spoken about this story together before?
No,
honestly, this guy word for word.
Yeah, I was just like, they're not even having any impact. They're removed from impact, but then they don't have any freedom to actually lead and manage in the way that they want to. They're just a slave to this like upper management and executives who are a slave to the shareholder. And I'm like, hang on a second, this is just bullshit. So it's not the reason I got into recruitment. And yeah, at the time, I think my desk was like hovering around $1 million, and I was getting paid $80K a year. And so we had a bunch of like senior consultants come in that I had to fucking train, and they were getting paid like 120 base, 180 OTE. I had a few conversations around like, probably need to increase my salary, like probably need to increase my commissions, or like change my role. Like I'm just getting a little bit kind of unsettled. Like I was ready for the next thing, which is why you can't have too many Andys in your team as well, I think, because managing me at the time would have been a pain in the ass. And I loved my manager, but fuck, like that, how annoying. I was young, like I was 24.
Yeah.
There was like this young fucking ankle biter who's like, I want, like, Bill's 60. He's getting 120K a year. I'm training him, so I need 150. Yeah. But I knew I could deliver on it as well. And so I was just having all of these conversations, and there were like a few things said around like, you know, my age and stuff. And I was like, actually, I'm getting further away from actually having the impact I want. I looked at the numbers I was doing, and I sort of went, if I can do 4 placements, pretty much, I'm pretty close to covering my annual salary. And I also had a bit of a safety net because I'd kind of bought investment properties and stuff. So I was like, like if it all goes to shit, I can get another job or something. And then similar sort of thing. In the first month I did 40K, and then by the second month I covered my salary. And then I was like, fuck, now I need help. So I just started building a team, and it all just went from there.
So good. And how's the change and evolution as a person? Like I honestly feel like a different human to what I was 2 years ago, working for the man, just clocking in, clocking out, to now. I'm so happy we took the plunge.
Yeah.
How did you find your growth within that in short 2-3 month period?
Well, I think when I was working for the big corporate company I was working for, I always had this little kind of voice of doubt going, am I just good because of the brand? Like, are people just coming to me because of the brand? They have big contracts as well. And I was making the most of those relationships, but there was always this little voice going, you only got that job because you're on a panel. Like, whereas I went out and started a company that recruited for real estate agents. And it was my name. It was SC People at the time. And we did extremely well. So I think just that belief and that, like, every aspect of my life changed the minute I started a business. I actually saw something really funny the other day saying I started a business so I could leave the 9 to 5 and work 24/7 instead.
Literally. It's a different energy source though, right? Like we don't stop, but we just love it.
If you love it, that's, you got to love it, definitely. And I think if you're built that way, you might as well work for yourself, because you're never going to get the return on investment that you put in. I was going to work 24/7 regardless of if I worked for Chandler McLeod or if I worked for, my own business. So I think if you're naturally geared that way, you might as well go and start your own business or, work to an equity position in the company that you work for, because you're going to work just as hard either way, but the return on your own business is astronomically more than if you work for
I think the growth and the personal development that you get from it, which isn't spoken about anywhere near as much. And I think so many of the employees, all they see is risk.
Yeah.
So and the risk averseness, and they would, the horror on their face when they see how much we might lose on a bad ad campaign because it hasn't sort of hit, and we've spent 30 grand on a campaign, we've got fuck all leads from it or no sales, and it's like, all right, well, that was an expensive lesson. But then the average employee I think the risk for that is alarming for them, and it keeps people stuck.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like we remember early on, like the highs are way higher. But then when you get that first one that goes under, or like we had a client that owed us a lot of money going to administration, and that's zapped completely.
Wow.
You're just like, the lows are so much lower. But at the same time, the person you become, it's like, okay, I can sit here and sulk about it and lose potential so much more money and opportunity costs while I'm not working. Well, you just shake it off and crack on.
Oh, it's the Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn has a quote around that. It's don't make $1 million not because of the money, but because of what it will make of you.
Going back to people, and this is really difficult for us because we're set up by a company called Ex-Recruiter. You know the boys really well, Blake and Deck.
Legends.
So their business is people like me and Harvey taking them out of an employee, making them a business owner. Now we've got employees, right? So we're in a funny spot where we're saying, hey, great, ex-recruiter is so good, but please don't leave because you're out of business. So we're still working through, obviously we're only 2 years in, right? So we're still work out where the hell this thing's going to be in a few years. But I know for us, kind of equity plans and need to become a director, labour hire, bang on. So they kind of have that stake and that love and the passion because it is their baby as well. But then on the flip side of that, you also don't want to give away your pie, which you risk your house for, and they potentially didn't as well. How do you balance between rewarding people and giving them that long-term pathway, but also not just chucking away the business that you've spent all your money on building? Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the show. Now, while I've got your attention, apart from being professional podcasters, we also run a recruitment agency called Parallel Consulting.
Yeah, we're super lucky that we get to partner with some of Australia's most well-known brands and biggest organisations. So if you're keen to hear a little bit more about how we add value to their teams and businesses with the right people, we'll put the links in the show notes, or you can check us out at www.parallelconsulting.com.au. Now enjoy the rest of the show.
It's different for everyone as well, right? Like some people don't want to be a business owner and some people probably don't have what it takes to be a business owner either. So I know in our team, there's certain people who we are fulfilling everything that they need. They may want a, a piece of the pie at one point, but right now their growth trajectory aligns with ours. And so I think it's about finding people who are on the where the journey matches, which is essentially what we all do as recruiters, right? Like as long as they kind of match up, that's normally the main thing. So
I think it's keeping them out of pain as well. So keeping them out of the pain. So, making the status quo good enough. Like we probably pay a little bit over.
Definitely.
We definitely pay a little bit over.
Yeah.
We pay on the high side and we do that because we've got great staff and they deserve it.
Yeah.
But we also want to make sure that they're satisfied and they feel rewarded and they feel valued. And in my past business, it was the opposite. And I just it was a revolving door. So that I learned that lesson where, the cost of me having to replace a team member, the cost of me having to re-recruit is so much more than paying someone a little bit over
An extra 10K,
the market rate.
Yeah.
I think keeping them out of pain, so making them feel valued, making them feel like things are good, I think is another strategy that we're implementing. But I don't think we've got it worked out.
We haven't got it. No. I was about to say we're not qualified to answer this question.
We've spoken. We've got plans in place to have equity for the managers and for some of the guys. Some of the leaders. So, but that's all still in place. So we'll have to keep. We'll have to take.
Chris
we'll have to get your notes.
Chris actually said something really interesting to me when we first started the business, and he's like, "I want people to be making money from us. Like, I want people to be making really good cash as a result of the work we're doing." And so. Not that I thought, I don't want to pay our staff, but now when I see one of our guys had like a 25K commission month and I was like, fuck yeah, like that's so good to see. Like I got to pay an invoice of 25K, like you're making money, we're making money. Like it's such, we're feeding each other and it's such a good feeling when we're paying huge money to our staff.
There's a huge takeaway as well in what you said as well, that not everyone's cut out for it. Yeah. And that's a conversation I had with another agency owner this morning whilst we were on a run. It's like, okay, it's a perfect picture.
Give Riley a shout out, mate.
Yeah, the big Riley. You saw two bold lids running down hedges out, that'd be us. He was like, it's just not as simple as, okay, you bill $1 million, go and do it for yourself and you're going to still do the same or still love it as much.
Yeah.
And it definitely is really empowering and fulfilling. But if you don't want it or you're not happy to take on that extra mantle of the shit stuff, the business ownership, then that's absolutely fine. And if you do just want to be a gun recruiting for someone else, then message me or ads. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think as well, like there's a big part to be said about getting your life in order before you decide to go and start a business, because, there is one part that's like, well, if you burn the boats, then you're likely to succeed. But there's also a lot to be said for having a stable partner. Like, I was in a different relationship when I started my business, obviously not in that relationship 12 months after starting the business. Like that relationship was never going to survive me becoming a business owner and getting tossed into, having to work 24/7. And the personal transformation that you go on as a business owner. Like that's another great part of us being in business together. We go through the transformation together and we know the weight of what we bring home as well. And I think a lot of partners, I feel for a lot of partners who have entrepreneurs as partners, because it's a huge commitment for them at home. watching you go through that journey.
I know that was something that I get a bit vulnerable here now. Hopefully they're not listening, which I'm sure they don't. Coming home in those early days when it was just me and you at the kitchen table, right? My missus is a teacher, a primary school teacher,
Yep.
so loves kids, but absolutely hates them
Yeah.
at the same time.
Loves her own kids.
My Harvey's partner had literally a newborn, right, at home.
God.
So me and Harvey come bounding through the door, babe, we just made 30K today. Well, how good. My missus has been chairs thrown at her all day and fruits covered in black shit. It's really hard to temper your excitement sometimes because they live in a different world, right? And I think
crazy.
they're used to it now, it's probably a bad way, but Mads is kind of stopped full-time teaching, starting an ecom business, which is be cool.
Yeah.
I think because she's seen how much we love it, right? She wants that passion and fire herself, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Brett's gone again. They've got another one in the oven.
Oh,
Good, man. Congrats.
Another one, yeah,
that's
mate.
amazing.
Yeah. But it's so awesome to have her at home, detached from the business, even from a sense of the input she has to the business. I probably haven't told her this. Like, I do value her input so much because she gives an opinion from a completely neutral situation and a very level head. And like, there's sometimes, because I'm a bit more emotionally attached, I'm like, no, fuck this, fuck that. And she's just like, yeah, but have you thought about this? And I'm like, nope. And we come to kind of a fair arrangement from a decision that I need to make. So it's also so powerful to have someone that is detached from it as well.
And she's got a business mind as well, Britt. She kind of gets it. Which is good.
Yeah.
So helpful to have those, those outside mentors, people who've got, they're impartial, they're not in it, they're not involved, and to get that, because we've been working so closely together. Now it's hard for me to imagine not, being on the same page, but we know everything together. It would almost be too much sometimes, where like it's good to switch off and go for dinner and just completely. We have to remind each other to, it's like, we make a conscious decision when we're out for dinner to no work talk, no business talk.
Yeah.
And then, 5 minutes in, we're deep into a work chat.
Randomly,
We're
Chris is like, did that person
and then we've been talking about it for 10 minutes. I'm like, hang on.
Hang on.
We're going to pull this up. So that can be challenging, I think, the switch, not getting that reset or not getting the mental break that going home you can get, but we love it.
But it's a mutual interest, right? You're not going to, if you and your partner gym every day together and absolutely love it, you're not going to go for a date and say, right, we're not talking about the gym today. I think you got to lean into it a bit.
That's true.
That's a valid point. Yeah, that's really interesting because we do really love it. Like we really enjoy it.
Although sometimes you're having a nice steak and we're talking about a recruitment client or a candidate that fucked us over. It's
fucking left.
They don't do that.
They're all great. Yeah. I'm learning about this recruiting stuff. So I was never in recruitment, so I'm a very fresh to this scene, and man, it's an eye opener seeing the dynamics. And when we started the business, I was actually consulting I was still working with Benny. I was kind of doing some side hustles. I was coaching. I was doing this and that. Sharni and I met. She was still recruiting real estate agents and property managers down in Newcastle. We had the baby. We got pregnant, and Sharni got violently ill for 7 months. She was bedridden, hospital. So there's it's called HG. So where they're sick for, so it's morning sickness, but for
every minute of every day.
Yeah,
7 months.
It's rubbish. And so she moved
not
to the
conducive
Goldie.
to running a recruitment company in Newcastle from the Gold Coast. So the plan was always I'd go fly down for a week, a month, and see the team, see the clients. Yeah. Couldn't fly for 7 months.
So I was working. I was leading a team of 14 salespeople plus consulting to a couple of other clients, and then all of a sudden, I'm now leading the sales. I'm leading the recruiting. So I'm a recruitment professional and leading a recruitment team on her behalf. And so that was pretty interesting. Just I had to take over all the clients. I was managing our clients and fielding calls. There'd be days where I'd have a clear day. I've got a nice day of deep work planned.
Which Chris
clear in the
loves,
calendar.
a deep
Clear in the
work.
calendar, man. I love that shit. And then, but I get to the end of the day, I'm like, I've been nonstop on the phone to property managers who've pulled out of a role, or a client who's upset, or we're recruiting for a valuer in Albury at the time as well. We're trying to close that deal. I get to the end of the day, I'm like, where is my day gone? What is this?
Like, welcome to recruitment, babe.
The roller coaster.
And to be honest, 90% of recruiters don't have a clue what they're doing anyway. So
Yeah, well, I learned that when-
just get a few resumes and zing them out, see what happens.
Hope for the best.
The closing, we did close a few good deals.
Yeah.
The closing definitely helped. The closing experience helped. We were able to close a few candidates there was one in particular, which was a pretty juicy fee as a property manager. And we had a role and she had sort of told our talent scout or resource. So she pulled out basically. She pulled
And I
out
was
of the
like,
interview.
get on the fucking phone. She's not pulling
No, she pulled out of the interview because she was unhappy. She was at a real estate agency. She'd been speaking to the resourcer, and she'd agreed to have an interview with our client.
And then she was like, I'll just stay for a couple of months where I am.
She sort of, and so the resourcer said, oh, you know, so and so's pulled out. And she's just going to stay and sort of see how things pan out at the current job, at the current role. I'm like, all right, cool. So I jumped on the phone and managed to turn around. She went to the interview. Yeah, it was like I had to pull out all the stops, all the questions, all the future pacing, all the stuff, and managed to get her to agree to go to the interview. Got the role, and she's still there.
She's still
their
there.
highest
This was like
performer.
4 years ago. She's like head of
manager.
property management. Yeah, it's so cool.
That's the magic. Sometimes I think you know what's best for people like more than what they do at times, because you know, even like our experience in a big global agency, you don't know what you don't know, and you are made to believe that there is no other alternative. Whereas when you work with so many different companies, you hear so many different stories of the wrong decisions, the right decisions. Sometimes the advice you can give people is just go and meet them.
Just go and meet
Like,
them.
if you call me after and say, Harvey, it was shit, you don't know what you're talking about, that's absolutely fine. But at least you tick the box and you're not going, what if?
Yeah. Yeah. And we go to sleep at night going, oh, I wonder what would have happened if Mel went to that interview. I know she's still going to be miserable 6 months later. You see it all the time. Someone pulls out or you get a counter offer from the current employer. Like, how many times do those candidates end up back on the phone to you going, oh, you know, they gave me more money, but it's still shit.
Yeah, that's it.
And you're like, well, the job's gone, so we're going to find something else.
Let's talk about Bali, because I know it would have been incredible, no doubt. And I'm sure I want to hear about all the good things, but I'm sure under the covers it was a challenge too. It would not have been plain sailing.
Well, so I was in Sydney, I'd been there for over a decade, and I was now working from Potts Point, from my apartment, closing remotely. And I think there was a moment where I just got, I was, I don't know, paying my rent. I was, I don't know. I think there was just a moment where I was like, what am I doing? I'm living in Sydney, been here for a long time. I'm doing something I can do from anywhere. What the fuck am I doing? Like, I've got to get out. I've got to go and travel and so I decided to go to Bali and do what I was doing, which was closing remotely from Bali, which was always actually a dream to move to Bali. I'd traveled there a number of times and I just love it. And so it was nice to be able to make that decision. So, but the thing that was keeping me also in Potts Point, I had this sick apartment, I had the unreal view, like Sydney Harbour Bridge. Every morning I'd wake up, I'd sort of see the harbour, and I just loved it. And it was keeping me stuck, really, because I'd always have the doubt in the back of my mind, if I give up this apartment, I'm not going to get it again. And so pulled out and ended up over in Bali. And so moved to Bali, sold all my shit in Sydney, and became a digital nomad. And moved to Bali, moved to Canggu.
Oh, beautiful.
Which was nice.
Yeah.
And so stayed in a few guest houses just initially to get myself settled, and then found a villa. And yeah, man, like it was around COVID. So it was 2019 that I moved over there and was setting myself up. So I play footy, Aussie rules. So not the
not the round game,
not the round game, not the real football, but Australia's version of footy, what we call footy. And there was a really good community there. So there's an ex-AFL player who was coaching. They're called the Bali Geckos, and it's just full of
so good
expats who have gone over there. And it was a really good crew of dudes who, mostly old blokes who were just having a run around. A couple of young people, but I found a really good crew and had a good vibe. I had co-working. I was working out of a co-working spaces. The co-working spaces over there, because of the tropical kind of nature of it, there's lots of outdoor parts. There's big bean bags. There's outdoor bars where you can just set your laptop up. And because I was constantly on the phone, I needed to have that corner where I could just not annoy everyone else on the desk. So yeah, I had a great setup there, and honestly would still be there if COVID didn't hit. The night I was probably there for 6 to 8 months when I think COVID really started to take hold. So in Australia, everyone was going mental, and in Bali, it was just there was less tourists. It was less busy, but it was just no one was noticing anything. And I was looking at the news and hearing from friends, it was just going rampant here, and everyone was stocking up on toilet paper and punching on in cold.
Yeah.
We were just like, what is happening?
That wasn't Ads' finest one.
You still got enough toilet paper though. So it was weird to see that because it was so chill over there. And I got home one night and I just had dinner with a couple of the boys from the football club and closed a bunch of deals, had a good commission day. And I remember going, man, I'm fucking loving this.
Yeah.
This is just the best. And I was at that point, one of my mates sent me the article where the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, I think at the time, was telling everyone that if you wanted to, they're going to close the borders, close Australia off. And I had a few things where I needed to come back to Oz. I had my brother's wedding, which I was in. I had my other brother was having a baby, and there was just a few things where I wanted to be able to come back to Australia. I didn't want to miss my brother's wedding. That was just a big thing for me. So we didn't know what was going to happen or how long it was going to be for. So I ended up coming back to Oz, booked a flight, and came back. At the time, there wasn't a quarantine. It was just Tasmania because I'm from Tassie. So I'd sold my stuff in Sydney. I had nowhere to go. So I had to go back to my parents down in Tassie. And so I did 2-week quarantine coming into Tasmania. And then it was like, shit, what do I do from here? Like, I was trying to wait it out to go back to Bali, and then it turned into a year, and then it turned into I think 2 years. It was a while before they opened the borders. So we've actually looked about heading over there now. So we're sort of in decision mode about whether we go back and move there because of the nanny situation. We can get cheaper nannies at the moment. We've got a full-time nanny. She's bloody amazing, but she's pulled the pin and she's moving back to Toowoomba. So we're going to hire another nanny, and we're looking at the salary and we're looking at all the things. And so we have carefully considered moving back over there. So we're in that decision mode now about whether we do it or not. But
Canggu again?
Canggu Pereiranen, I think is how it's pronounced. So it's a little bit of a quieter vibe, but it's close. I think or Uluwatu.
Do you have some of your sales guys that you're coaching and placing? Are they remote? Like, are they obviously they're all remote, but are they working and living in like a Bali, for example?
Yeah,
a lot.
A lot of them. So there's one of our team members is in Thailand. We've got Vietnam, Bali.
One of the dudes, one of my original closers I trained and placed was living in Bali. Oh, actually, he was back in Oz. So this was the funny story. He was one of those guys who decided not to come back for COVID.
Oh.
Was in Brazil he had a Brazilian girlfriend. Couldn't come back to Australia because the borders were closed. Couldn't get back in. So was stuck in Brazil. Broke up with the missus. Was in Brazil. Had no one spoke English. He was depressed because he broke up with the missus. He couldn't get back to Australia, so he was moping around different parts of the world, trying to get over this breakup. But then wasn't making money. His business he was a coach, and his business just was tanking, and so he wasn't making money. Finally got back to Australia. Got himself back to Australia, and we got chatting. He heard about what I was doing, which was the closing sort of gig, and he was like, "Man, I need to get on that team. I need to come work for you. I need to come and sort of get on that team." And so, but he was back to Australia with $0 in the bank, starting again essentially. So I gave him a go, and he borrowed $800 from his parents at the time to get a flight to Bali because he'd been in Australia for like a couple of months, and he just was like, "This, I just can't do it. It's not for me. I want to go back to Bali." Had to borrow $800 to get a flight back to Bali. Got back to Bali, still hadn't made any money through the closing, so had to make it work. Had no other option. Was desperate to make it work. Closed his first sale. Closed his first call. So made $800. And then became the top closer. So just became the top closer on the team. A lot of training, but he managed to crush it on the team. He now lives in Colombia. So he became the top closer on the team, made shitloads of cash. He was averaging 30 grand, 35K a month when he was on that team for a few years. One of his clients or one of his friends, it was a client, a friend, started a business which helps CEOs quit alcohol, high-flying CEOs quit alcohol. The guy's based in Brisbane, the founder, but they live in the States, and it's all through the States. And so that company was at 80 grand a month. And within 12 months, he went in, kind of helped them build the systems, helped them build the team. He was selling at the start. He kind of helped them grow it. And it is now 1.2 million a month, 1.3 million USD a month. He makes a percentage of that. He's making some months 75K US, living in Colombia. And
Which is a bit cheap, right?
It's $4 grand a month expenses. It's
Lives
wild.
in this gorgeous penthouse.
Yeah,
Now has a new girlfriend. Are they still together?
Oh no.
This is a really happy story.
I hope that she's not listening.
Yeah, we've got a Spanish subtitle on too.
Yesterday. But I mean, that's an example of what's possible. At one time, we had a team I was coaching we had about 4 reps who were in Bali. In Bali, it's an interesting vibe for this stuff because it is quite yin, where everyone's there for flow and connection, and whereas sales and closing, particularly, it's quite masculine, and you're almost in a boiler room, and especially on a sales team that's high performance. There's targets to hit. You've got to work extra hours to hit the targets. It's definitely not the some of the teams that you work on, it's definitely not the laptop where you're at you're drinking a coconut at a cafe in Bali. You got to be locked in and to hit your targets. So trying to balance that, I think, for some people find really difficult.
What's the transition like? Because obviously this fella had some business experience, as did you. So naturally, as part of that, you're a good salesperson, right? You're selling your own product. But say I'm someone listening to this, I might be a Sparky or a tradie. I'm just going, this isn't for me anymore. I want to get off the tools, and whether I want to travel or stay here. Can you do that?
One of our students, Dan, is a great example of that. So he's a tradie who's a carpenter. He was traveling like 3 hours a day, so an hour and a half each day, each way to sites, to and from work. Got jack of that, had been jack of it for a few years, but was looking for options, looking at e-com, looking at different ways to make money online, found closing and found us. And honestly, he had pretty good foundational communication skills because he'd worked with some clients, and I think he'd managed some of the team that he was working with. But he'd never certainly had sold high ticket. And really, if you've got good foundational communication skills through managing people, working with client-facing roles, customer service, any kind of retail, you can apply those to the strategy of high ticket, and you learn the strategy, you improve those skills through training. And you can absolutely put yourself in a position where you can get hired by a business and sort of make a transition. And that's what he did. So one of our clients, so our businesses feed one another. So a lot of the candidates from Remote Sales Institute, the graduates, they become some of our top candidates for Beyond Closes, which is the recruitment.
It's amazing. Yeah.
You're there cruising, just like, come on, send me another.
Literally, sometimes I'm like, who have you got? Who have you got? I've got this role, hard to fill.
That's it. Good. So one of our clients was looking for an appointment setter. It was, I think, a 60K base and OT of somewhere around 90 grand. Remote, work from home. And we had about 1,000 or a couple of thousand, like with these remote roles, we get thousands of applications.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
And a lot of like really hotly in demand. He was one of the standouts and made it through the interview rounds. And to be honest, we had to kind of push the client to interview him because the video, he thought, he might not want to interview him, but we managed to get him to interview him. And
similar to you guys know, similar to candidates, sometimes clients don't know what's good.
They don't know what they don't know. Sure. So then, taking the guidance. But he beat out other candidates who were down to those final rounds that had 20 years experience in sales because of what he learned, because of the training. And we the way we train, the way I train them at Remote Sales Institute is sharpening people, not just for sales, but also for these interviews where often you're role playing, often you're being put through an assessment. And he just blitzed it. Yeah, coming from a different background, I think if you want more, if you want to get paid for your results, not time, I think that's a big one for salespeople, is being paid for your results, which means you don't have to invest more time. If you improve your skill set, you can get paid more. You can get paid more than a doctor, a lawyer, in many cases a CEO. Sometimes you get paid more than the business owner, the top reps. And you don't want to have to work 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week. Like great sales reps don't always have to work that to make great cash. it's a great transition, and really all you need is a high work ethic, a really clear goal and motivation, and some foundational communication skills.
Looking at the top performers that you've worked with, you've developed yourselves, what are some key traits? What do all these people seem to have in their locker which allows them to be in the top 1%?
I mean, goal focus is number one. So people who are clear on their vision and their goals, and they have, I think, a desire for more is probably number one. Is people who are okay with how things are going, or they're pretty satisfied with the status quo, aren't typically great salespeople in my experience. So they've got to be motivated through a desire for more. I think, what we just explained about that hard wiring of someone who's they just have to be the best.
The winner. Yeah.
They have to be a winner, and they've got a chip on their, often because they've got a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
They were beaten as a child or something, and just no, I wasn't beaten as a child, but definitely.
You are right though. On a previous podcast, we spoke about that. Can you become super successful if you've had an easy upbringing?
Yeah, I think about this a lot.
Our upbringing wasn't bad, but we didn't have loads, right? We kind of got by, we did what we needed to do, always looked over the other side of the fence at the people who had more. And I think unresolved trauma maybe, but that's part of the fire that we've got, is just to absolutely not accept anything less than the best. Yeah. It's a really hard one to put into words.
Yeah, we've obviously done a lot of work with coaches, and I've tried to do work with psychologists before who want to unpack all the trauma and how did it make you feel. I'm like, no, fuck that. Like, that's my superpower. I'm like, tell me how I can utilize the chip on my shoulder whilst keeping it, because it's my superpower. Yeah. Tell me how I can utilize it best, because that is why I'm going to beat 99% of other people in the exact same position as me. And that's what I don't think people understand enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I have the same experience. Often, I've tried a few times to work with psychologists, and by session 1 or 2, I'm like, so when are we going to get to the part where we
Sharni's upbringing was definitely wrong side of the tracks. I don't think you were beaten as a child though, but
well, no, I've blocked most of it out.
But coming from that upbringing, I think is an advantage. Some people see it as a problem, but you can use it to your advantage.
Coming from nothing, you've kind of got nothing to lose. Is how I felt about my business as well. When I was making that decision around, do I start a business? Do I not? I came from nothing, absolutely nothing. We lived in housing commission, so. Fuck, if it all goes to shit, I could live in housing commission again. It wasn't that. Just start again. So I think it definitely gives you that. I didn't have that much to lose in that situation.
It's a healthy tension between dissatisfaction and desire, I think, is the key, and or gratitude probably. So dissatisfaction for not having what you really want and not being where you want to be, and that drives you, but also having, I think it can get to an unhealthy level. For me particularly, there's many times where I've got to, I think, pull myself down and start to really be grateful and look at the things I've got and chill out a little bit. So for me, and with sales reps that I train and salespeople I've managed, we have to recognize the wins. So often they're the most critical. They're the ones who are looking at, they didn't hit X number, or maybe their calls feel like they're sucking, but I think my job as a trainer, as a leader, is to help them also recognize the wins, the things that they're doing right, to help them get that balance between that dissatisfaction, which will drive them, but also recognizing their wins, because they don't do their own head in.
Yeah, that's it. It's toxic in a way, isn't it? It's we talk about the ever-changing goalposts, and it's like sometimes you've got to step back and just go, fuck, we're doing all right. Yeah. You've got to
100%. 100%. We've got to do it more often.
I think our team are pretty good at reminding us, they're much better than we are. Often we'll get to the end of the month and our sales manager will be like, oh, we hit these results. Chris and I are like, yeah, we did. That's really cool. And this is what we're going to do next month.
I think you just become desensitized to it, hey? What you've achieved now, we've had a great month, which is awesome, right? But that's kind of the pass mark now.
Yeah.
Now, next month, if we're going to do the same, I won't be as excited. I want to go and do X amount more, to get that growth and trajectories. I think only when you then have a shit month, you go, oh, shit, actually, to be grateful for those pass mark months, because they're actually quite good.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You shouldn't have to take that pain, right, to give your head a wobble and go, actually, things are pretty good.
And a month can slip away from you so quickly. Yeah, you sort of, you wait, you close your eyes and then you open them again and you're at the week 2, you're halfway through week 2, and you're projecting on pace, and that can go quick.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
We covered a lot of ground there, haven't we?
We sure did.
It's gold.
Done everything.
I love these ones.
Yeah, good fun. Good, great couches, great setting. You guys are killing it.
Yeah.
So if people want to come and get off the tools, they're in sales at the moment, but they don't feel like they're hitting where they need to be, they're working for the man and they want to go and live the Bali lifestyle, how do they come and find you guys? What's the first step?
So we're remotesalesinstitute.com is the best place to start, or follow me, Kris Cochrane, on Instagram, Kris Cochrane on Instagram. But yeah, go to the website, check us out. You can book a call and have a chat with one of the team.
Yeah, and we'll get all the info off you and chuck it in the show notes as well, so people can definitely come and find you. But thanks for coming on. It's a real cool story, and there's so many lessons for us, and I think people listening as well. You know, whether they're in business or not, or in sales, whatever it might be, there's going to be some good takeaways for them.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for having us.